Mr. Chairman, looking at H1, increasing the instructional day from 175 days to 177 for 2013 and 14. Looking at the date of October the 11th of this year and March 14th of next year. I know there's some concerns about the motive and purpose for doing this. Board members, essentially, the evaluation system has changed in the state of Georgia. Our principals will be told who has scored well as far as teachers within the evaluation system with the longitudinal data system. And what I wanted to do was to provide as much regular instructional time for our students as I could. The motive is very pure with that because of the evaluation process and the fact that our teachers need this time with our students. As you see, we're still playing catch up at middle and high. Elementary is doing a good job, but we still have some room to grow. And it's important that our teachers spend this academic time with them. I know that there are some concerns about October the 11th being selected. I wanted to choose a date this year and a date next year, or first semester and second semester. And regardless of what days or dates I would have chosen, you know, there'd be some folks that wouldn't be happy with that. But looking at that long weekend in October, essentially took that Friday, October the 11th, that still gives the 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th. And certainly for those that are working, that provides them a place for their children on that 11th. And then certainly in March, that was a reduced staff day that we selected there for continued instruction. Again, board members, the motive was pure to add instructional time rather than extend the day. I've given you the starting and ending of schools at 175 days and 177. The 5 minutes probably doesn't seem like that's a big issue, but when you tack it on the day like that, I personally don't think our kids get the kind of instruction they need to get during a regular school day. That's my motive, Mr. Chairman.
Questions?
Yeah, I actually have a lot of issues with this, so I guess I can go first since I'm the one who's pitched the biggest fit. My biggest issue with this, number one, and I'll just start with the least significant and move my way forward. You know, Dr. Harper, you just glossed over the issue of the 11th, but you know, when we talked about furloughing teachers as a mechanism to help with our budget, you know, what we said when I was on the board previously, and I know this board has continued this practice, is that we're going to give teachers this time back in a way that they could do something positive with it to reduce the sting of losing some of their pay. And this October calendar in particular, this would be the third change. You know, when we publish this thing, you know, parents and staff alike begin to make plans. And I think, number one, it's not fair for us to say, well, now, sorry, you have to come in and work on that 11th after we've told them for at least a couple of months ago now that this was going to be their schedule. So I do have a problem with that. I think this impacts a lot more people than you are just glossing over. So that's one thing. The other issue that I have with this is the downstream effects of this. I mean, I saw the schedule that you published, and again, it was designed, I think, to show minimal effect. But when you start talking about what happens in between the start and end time, there's a lot of work that's going to have to be done to deal with schedules and all the various issues that this change will create. Bus routes is going to have to be looked at as well. So there are a lot of downstream inconveniences to a lot of different people that this particular change will create. But my biggest issue is the financial impact. You know, Todd didn't have the information for us tonight. I know we'll have it next week, but I think without question we can say that we're in deficit financing. I mean, we've been in deficit financing in this school system for a few years now, and you know, just because our fund balance maybe came out a little bit better this year than what we expected, I don't know that we should take this typical spend the people's money mentality and just say, all right, well now we have $800,000 to $900,000 that we feel like we can pull out of our reserve. I mean, when I spoke with you about this today, you told me that these 2 days would be about an $800,000 or more hit to our fund balance. Is that not correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
So that's basically $1 million that we're going to be pulling out of our reserve when we're already in negative financing at this point. All of us as a board have been spoken to individually, and I'm just going to look everybody right in the face when I say this and say that we've all been told that next year is going to be worse than this year. And that next year we may be dealing with more real staff cuts than we can handle through the attrition process. That is a fact. And I can't for the life of me understand why this board would vote to do something that's going to put 9 to 15 more teachers at jeopardy, because that's essentially what this is. This is 9 to 15 more teachers, somewhere in that range of people who are going to be impacted by this $880,000. I would love to have our teachers at full employment. I think everybody would, but not at the risk of putting people's jobs in jeopardy. I mean, essentially for our teachers, this maybe after taxes is a $300 per year increase in their salary, maybe a little bit more based on tenure. That equates to about $30, maybe $40 a month after taxes. Who would want that money if they knew it was going to put their job at risk? It's just not worth it. I would much rather see us take this money, save it for next year, look at what our real costs are, some of these unknown expenses that we don't know, and use this money in a way that makes more sense. Aside from that, I'm offended, just to be totally frank with you, that we got this in our packet without having any heads up on this. I think it's completely irresponsible. We spent months working on our budget and setting this millage rate that we just voted on, and to spring this on us after we've gone through all this work, I think is basically financial malpractice, and I don't see how we can look people in the eye and tell them that we're using the money that the taxpayers have provided to us in an appropriate and efficient manner.
Any other?
Mr. Chairman, there's one issue that I'd like to address in Mr. Schultz's comments. Mr. Schultz, we have significant turnover of staff each year with teachers retiring or teachers leaving the system. And that's what I look to for whatever reduction that we have or we will have. Ms. Daphne has done an exceptional job with that year in and year out. And I certainly don't want to see anyone lose their job inside of Bartow County school system. But again, the focus is on teacher time and classroom time, particularly in the new light of the evaluation accountability system that's coming to us.
But is it not true that as a functional, practical matter, I mean, when the legislature allowed school systems around this state to take 180 instructional days and to divide that by whatever calendar you want to set, I mean, we're not gaining any instructional time. All we're doing is taking that same formula, that same 180-day formula of minutes and hours, and dividing it. We would be dividing it by 177 instead of 175.
Well, isn't it true, though, that when you divide this up and you get 2 full days, that's much different in having concentrated time in teaching students as opposed to having 5 minutes tacked on in the morning and 5 minutes in the afternoons?
Well,
I
would
know
just,
that for my children, and their learning and being able to get that concentrated classroom time, having 2 full days as succinct days makes a big difference in gains as opposed to little dribs and drabs along the way.
yeah, I just completely disagree with that, honestly. I just think that these 2 days, as somebody who's been in the classroom for, high school classroom for that matter, I don't think these 2 days make a big difference one way or the other. What it does make a difference is the fact that we've pulled $1 million almost out of our fund balance, and it completely restricts our ability to be able to deal with our financial problems next year that you can't project. I mean, I don't wonder why pull us in and say, we don't know what we're going to do next year. We're going to have to possibly, raise taxes. This is dire straits. And then come up here and recommend, this kind of major hit to our fund balance. We're talking about $500,000. I mean, this is $500,000 that this represents. So I don't see how we can take $500,000 worth of tax money out of our fund balance and come back to the taxpayers. Where's this money going to come from next year? We're going to come back to the taxpayers and say, we took this $500,000 out of our fund balance haphazardly. Now we want you guys to make up the difference in property tax increases. That makes no sense to me, why we would do that. Why not just have some responsibility, save this money, be good stewards of this money now? And, the teachers were already prepared to work a 175-day schedule. Parents were already prepared for that. The schedules were already done. Everything was already completed. We'd already done the budget work. We'd already voted on the millage rate. proposal. I don't understand why we would bring this up now with very little investigation as far as I can tell.
Any other comments?
Matt, what percentage of reserves would you say is a good, healthy reserve, looking at the budget? Because my understanding is, I think we're at like, what, 15 million right now in reserves? What would
A
you,
little over that, yes, sir.
what would you feel comfortable with as a percentage
Well,
of reserves for?
Well,
And the reason I say that is because I think we were at 7 million, now we're at 15. And
well, how
But
long
what
do we
would you-
operate that? You know what I mean?
I mean, it's going to take me this week to look at it because
I think the
I'd like
issue
to-
is we can't pay for what we're doing. And so how long does that fund balance hold out? I mean, I think, to me, the issue is we had a process. The process was to develop the budget, to vote on the millage rate, to use that to come up with our plan. That took months of work to do that. Now, in a matter of days, we have this change in policy, change in direction that hits our reserve at about, $800,000, $900,000. I just think that's irresponsible. We don't know a lot of what those cost factors are going to be next year. That was the whole reason we had these meetings about staff reductions and increasing the millage rate. And, this whole premise of these meetings was we're searching for ideas on how we can go through the budget and save dollars. Well, the stuff we were looking at here was $60,000 here, $100,000 here, $50,000 here. And now we're going to come back and wipe out $880,000 in one swipe. I just don't see how that makes any sense in light of where we are right now with our budget.
I guess my sense, though, is that if our goal as a school system is to increase the gains in student achievement, increasing our results on CRCT test, increasing our graduation rates, we do an enormous disservice to our students by taking them out of school and essentially giving them a holiday for 5 days out of that week. Because that's what we've done. We go from 180 days down to 175. Our children are missing a full week of concentrated class time and instructional time with their teachers. And I think that does a disservice to our teachers and to our students. And if our ultimate goal and our first priority is student achievement and getting our students where we want them to go, then I think we have to start backing out of some of these furlough days and start giving our students what they need to succeed.
I don't disagree with what you said, but to me, the best way to do that, again, is to be a better steward of the resources. We already went through the process this year. While I would love to have everybody be fully employed or have extra days, that should be a discussion for next year when we're developing the budget and can better project what our expenditures are. And I just think, to me, it's irresponsible to do it at this point in the year because of all the downstream effects, not to mention the fact that we have serious concerns over being able to fully staff our teachers next year. I mean, if somebody came to me and said, Matt, what would you rather have? $300 right now because we're trying to have some political gesture, or the ability to keep your job next year, I mean, that's an easy answer for most of our teachers. And honestly, I haven't found a teacher yet who thinks this is a good idea. And a lot of parents aren't happy about it either. Completely misplaced.
Any other comments? Okay. Dr. Harper,
That's the agenda for this evening, Mr. Chairman.
any public participation?
No, sir.
At this time, I'll call for a motion to adjourn our work session. Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor, if you'll raise your hand, please. It is 5-0. Thank you.